Hello and welcome to another Mikereative Cast. This is episode 8. We are going to have a short one for you guys, and we're just going to talk about a couple things. And it's going to be a pretty good show. We've broken it down to just a couple articles, and the last one is going to be pretty fun, kind of like not really a game, but just a almost
like a what if.
Yeah, like a what if type of situation for Star Wars. So if you're excited about Star Wars, if you like it, or if you just want to hear maybe some possible theories about what could happen or what could have been, be sure to check it out to the end of the video. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's do the beer of the show.
All right, so the beer of the show. I cannot actually pronounce this. If I don't know if
It's
you
totally okay.
can see that from right here. You probably can't. It doesn't matter. You won't be able to pronounce it unless you're Belgian. So it's called 3 Fontanine, and then it's basically a lambic. So what's in it is 60% malted barley, 40% unmalted wheat, old hops, and water.
That's it?
That's all it is.
That is so cool.
That's like an authentic beer. We actually hung out with Germans the other day, and they were basically, your craft beer is not real beer. And I was like, that offends me. But you're so right.
Yeah, they're like, all we have is like this, and this, and they're like, that's it. That's all. That's all. And you just do combinations of all of that. And I'm like, that's amazing that they're able to make so many different kind of flavors just out of like 5 ingredients, 3 or 4 ingredients.
It's all the hops, the barley, and stuff like that. How it's actually
and water and
how it's heated and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
It's
Anyways,
so cool. All right,
cheers.
Well, let's cheers to that and let's see how this thing tastes. You said it was a lambic or a goes, or is it both?
It says Ode to Goes. That's the name of it. Ode Goes.
Wow,
it's good. It's really good. I like it.
Yeah, no, that is really good. Holy man.
It was,
I mean, just like that, just only those ingredients.
Yeah.
And it tastes, but it's so like full in your mouth, you know?
Wanna know something?
Yeah.
It says
I do.
It was bottled in November 28th, 2017.
Ooh.
It's best by October 26th, 2037. So this beer is good for 20 years.
Nice. Oh, what's the alcohol by volume?
The alcohol by volume is 5.5%.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
Pretty good beer. I like it.
Good rundown. I like that. Vincent.
Yes, sir.
Dark Phoenix trailer just came out today. So you guys are going to be watching this on Sunday, so you guys know when we recorded this. Dark Phoenix trailer dropped today, and you watched it. I watched it. What do you think about it?
Where the hell is Wolverine?
I was waiting for that.
What is this? I'm actually not like the biggest X-Men fan.
Where's Hugh Jackman?
Where's Hugh Jackman, guys? This is why I came, guys.
Where's the claws? Where's the claws man? Where's the claws man? Yeah, no. So this is a whole, almost like a redo of the last X-Men, like X-Men 3 or X3.
Yeah.
They did a whole Dark Phoenix thing too.
Yeah, they did.
So they're rebooting it almost kind of in that new timeline with Sansa.
And,
you know, and it's just interesting. I didn't like Jean Grey, or I didn't like her as Jean Grey in the first couple or whatever. Like she just kind of seemed not all there, or kind of bland.
Yeah.
But at least this one they seem to be pushing her a little bit more, with, you know, because she looks more, she's like breaking down kind of thing, where she's like, her like skin's kind of crackling but like glowing, and like Phoenix is coming out type of thing. Because you know the whole like, do you know the whole like origin of that whole thing?
I know parts of the actual origin.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool that it's like, it's almost like a two souls type of thing.
Yeah.
In one body trying to get out. And so I like that they kind of, the way that they did the CGI on her face, almost making it seem like the Phoenix is out now, or like it's been born and she has to either deal with it or she's succumbing to it. It looks like in the trailer that she's succumbing to that darkness.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where it kind of turns out, but I'm still weary because of how she acted in the other movies. It kind of makes me think, is she going to be that same way? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, because really, I mean, all we really have to base it on is the Game of Thrones series.
Right.
But I hated her in the beginning. I thought she was like, this character is just useless. But if
Did you hate her because she was just pompous?
She was just pompous.
Yeah, but
like,
that's what she was supposed to be.
But that's what she was supposed to be, you know. And then maybe she's supposed to be like this timid girl who doesn't really know who she is or what she can do, and is trying to like, you know, obviously not go to her full potential because her full potential could be catastrophic.
Yeah, well, so now it's almost like she's coming out of her shell.
Exactly, and then that's the whole like Sansa Stark from the series of 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Is it 7 and 8? Yeah, 7 and 8. To where you're actually seeing kind of like this really kind of
6 and 7.
6 and 7. It is this okay.
Where she's kind of turning into that kind of
and I think she's kind of good as a
little fingerish type of
kind of like as like an anti-hero type thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think her coming out that way is going to be a little more exciting because she might be a little bit more in her element.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, at least the trailer made it looked enticing. Like I mean, the other ones kind of just like, oh, things are gonna explode. Like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Mm-hmm.
What was the last one that they did? They did the I don't know.
Oh, the apocalypse one.
The apocalypse one. It was like,
that's right.
People are just gonna go in and then boom, pow, pow, wow, you know, and then that's the movie, and you know what to expect.
That one was like, I watched it. I thought it was all right.
Yeah.
Better than the one before it.
Mm-hmm.
God, what was that one? But I mean, like there's been so many, and there's been such a switch of like timeline, you know, alternate reality or alternate timeline type of thing, where you're kind of like, God, when time did this one come out? What time did this one come out? Because then Logan screws that all up too, because now you have actual like, Patrick Stewart, Sir Patrick. Is it Patrick Stewart?
Patrick Stewart. I don't know if it's Sir. It might be Sir Patrick Stewart now.
You have him as Professor X, obviously, because it's like an older. But I mean, is that still that one timeline, or is that now the timeline in the future of what happened in the? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much going on that it's like there's so many movies. I'm like kind of like, do I want to watch them all again and kind of catch up on it, or do I just go from here and just kind of figure it out?
I would definitely want to catch up on this series because this one actually, other than the first original X-Men,
the younger ones now.
Yeah, the younger
young
ones.
Magneto,
from
young
First
Professor
Class,
X.
the young ones.
Okay. You want to catch up on that?
I want to catch up on that just because it seemed a little bit more interesting and a lot less. When X-Men came out, it was really kind of just like we're really putting out these movies to be super Hollywood, a lot less character development, and more kind of just like, oh, it's the X-Men. Let's just put them in a movie.
I thought they were pretty good.
I
thought there was like especially 1 through 3, right? Where they just did a trilogy, and then they kind of started doing like weird kind of little spin-offs and stuff.
Spin-offs were terrible.
Like when he goes to Japan, whatever, right? But the actual 1 through 3, like even the first one where he's like, you pretty much are just following Wolverine, you know, and then he meets Rogue, but you have that kind of development where he changes from one person to like, get the fuck out of my face, to the like, oh yeah, no, I'll be part of this team, and this is I'm going to save you or help you guys and whatnot, or whatever it is.
That. You're right. I like the first one. The second one, I thought I think a lot of people prefer the second one. I just really liked the first one.
The first one was good.
The third one was actually when they came out with Dark Phoenix, correct?
Right. Yeah, and the whole time Jean Grey's in it, and she was good, and they had the whole like romantic like tryst between, or the triangle between Cyclops, Wolverine, and Jean Grey, you know, and then it kind of like goes to a closure in X3, you know, because she straight up like, you know, the end of the story.
Yeah.
And then like he has to deal with that in all the little spin-off kind of things.
Yeah.
Like he deals with like whatever happens, and let's just say there's some rejection. That's just a straight up spoiler, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure.
Sorry, guys.
Straight up spoiler.
Sorry,
We're terrible at this. We don't even do like it's spoiler and then it. Nope. Spoil.
No,
we already ruined it for you.
Is this and she dies.
Yeah, she dies.
She sacrifices herself, so it's not really like a rejection. It's more like she sacrifices herself. So okay, I'm just gonna spoil everything for you guys.
Now you don't gotta watch the movie.
But no, I thought that was a good like arc. That three pair trilogy was a good arc. But once it started doing the spin-off things, and then they had to kind of like they were losing, almost maybe they were just losing money, and they're like Fox was like pressuring them, so they're like, let's revamp the whole thing and add in First Class, and you know what I mean, like. I don't know. I never got into the second spin-off type of thing. The second X-Men generation. I never got into that. Like,
I know I watched First Class and I really enjoyed First Class. And I thought it was good. It was actually written really well. It's going on a different timeline, obviously.
Yeah.
What's interesting is they're starting with Dark Phoenix much sooner, to where
that's
Jean
true.
Grey in the original series, she was already much older. You know, they had already gone through a few different things, and then Dark Phoenix was the one that she turned into Dark Phoenix, or allowed that to take over her. Now it's happening quicker, to where she's still young.
Yeah, definitely.
And they're really in the beginning stages.
That's
so
true.
now you're seeing this Dark Phoenix character kind of just come onto the scene a lot quicker.
So how is it going to control her, and having it been so young in her life, instead of where X3 she was already older and maybe more mature, to the fact where she can kind of decide, or like realize that this is not her, you know what I mean, to kind of correct herself.
Exactly. Yeah, and you still got to wonder, is Logan really a part of this timeline? Does he never show back up in this timeline?
Right.
You know, he's really kind of just
is there going to be another iteration of Wolverine? I know we were talking about that. Like, would there be another? I know there'd be backlash. I think there would be backlash.
There'd be backlash. I mean, Hugh Jackman has fit that role so well for so long.
Definitely.
Regardless of terrible movies, he's fit that role for so long. But I think they're going to have to. I mean, especially if Marvel eventually gets the rights to Xmen, they're able to put them in their movies, then...
I was saying, too, that they can almost have either a young one,
Yeah.
kind of like how they did with... but not really. He can't really be young because he's so... He's so old already at that time, because he grew up in the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
So he can't even really have a young one. But almost what I was actually saying was having like a different type of Wolverine, or different, you know, like, because he had like X-23 in Logan, where you can have those different ones, or like even in some of the other like I think X2, when he like, or in Origins or whatever, right? It's like the chick with the freaking like, I think the fingernails. They like the metal out of her fingernails instead, or whatever. So I mean, like, there's different versions, I'm sure, that they can figure out to be that replacement type of like Claude superhero baddie type of person.
I think it'd just be way too hard to replace Wolverine.
I think so too, for sure.
I mean, you've dealt with Hugh Jackman for so long, and he's just that role. Like, how do you move on from that? But I mean, overall, I'm excited about it. I think it's worth a watch. I mean, I don't guarantee I'm going to watch it in the theaters, because I'm not really one of the people who's like, oh yeah, let me go gung-ho for X-Men. It's never been that enticing enough for me to be like, I'm going to go spend $20 on this movie, you know, and watch it. I mean, maybe for the sake of this podcast, we can actually do a review for it, but otherwise, I'd save my money for it. I really would. No offense to who is it?
That's
Fox?
your opinion.
Is it Fox or Sony?
You don't have to offend them. They're big money.
Yeah, they don't care. No, but I mean, I guess we'll see what happens with that.
Well, that was a good discussion. Handles. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, MySpace. Just kidding. We're not on MySpace. Twitter, Twitch, SoundCloud, and I'm forgetting something else. Instagram.
That's the one.
Instagram. Yes.
We are there.
So I want to make sure we plugged our other social medias before we get into the next article, which is actually a really fun one.
Mm-hmm.
We were trying to go off of a game type of article where we can kind of create a game off of it and build points, because we've been doing games in the past as well. So this is not going to be a game, but we were kind of thinking this is kind of cool to kind of have like it be like a what if. So let's bring up the article real quick. I'm going to have it in the description down below for you guys, because we're only going to choose a few things within the article. So if you guys want to check out the rest of the actual 15 different cutscenes, then be sure to check out the article by CBR.
Yep.
So it's actually called Forced Out, 15 Star Wars cutscenes that would have changed everything. So what we went ahead and did is we read through the article, we read through the 15 different items. We picked a few, and we're gonna kind of go over them, and we're gonna say why we think it would have changed or how it would have changed, and then if we end up getting a similar one, then we can go into more discussion as to like why he chose it. Okay, Vince, you're up first. What is your one of your choices as to within the article that would change everything about Star Wars, and why?
All right. As soon as I pull it up, so the first thing is the Lost 20.
Ooh, I said that one
20.
too.
Ooh, okay. So the Lost 20. So what it says is Attack of the Clones in 2002 introduced Count Dooku, a former Jedi Knight, who had renounced the Order and resurfaced as the Sith working under Darth Sidious. While the movie does a decent job of telling the character's story while still keeping it mysterious, there was a deleted scene that not only would have expanded Dooku's past, but also the lore of the Jedi. While searching through the Jedi archives, Obi-Wan would have learned of Dooku and the Lost 20. These were 20 Jedi Knights who had defected from the Order. These 20 were counted from all of the Jedi's history, showing just how rarely a Jedi leaves the Order. So it's a rare thing.
Mm-hmm.
So even just that tidbit of like, what if, you would have figured out who Dooku was, and then the plans, I guess would have been foiled, but I don't know. I think I might be lost in a sense of just where I'm at in that timeline.
Right,
But,
where it happens.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think you're onto something in the sense of that plans would have been foiled unless obviously he actually already knew about it. But the whole 20 thing is what intrigued me, because the fact that like we learned from The Last Jedi, and even throughout the different Star Wars movies, that the Jedi had been around for thousands of years.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's like thousands of years of generations of Jedi just overly kind of like trained, and they're just constantly good to where there's only 20 that have actually turned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does that mean that? I guess that technically means what's his face is 21. Anakin would be 21 then.
Anakin would be 21.
Which is kind of interesting number, because I know that's usually kind of like a commonly used number, 21,
Mm-hmm.
13, and like different some other numbers. But I just that intrigued me, because I'm like, not that it would change anything too drastically.
No.
In the rest of the Star Wars like movies, but the fact that there'd be so many theories as to like who were the rest of the 20,
Yeah,
who were the others that throughout the thousands of years that actually turned on the Jedi Order. Like I thought that was really interesting.
I think that is really interesting, because they could have, just like how Rogue One was just a small tidbit in what was it? Not Return of the Jedi, The Empire Strikes Back, or they talk about where they get the plans.
A New Hope.
A New Hope.
In between the 3 and 4.
So, they really took that story and made it into Rogue One, which I actually really enjoyed. It's like, because you actually get to understand and know what happened, other than like, oh yeah, someone stole the plans, and all of a sudden we have the plans. Like, no, they went through a full in-depth story, and obviously they're trying to expand and create more stories. So if they would have thrown in that 20, Jedi Knight tidbit, they could have at least made a series out of it. What if they put it on Netflix or something like that? Right. And it could have been a 20-part series about all these Jedi.
Each ones that went dark.
And it would have opened up so many different things. Obviously, they didn't think about it at that time, because they didn't know. Well, at that time, I guess George Lucas was kind of just, making his movies. But if he would have just added that one small tidbit, then it could have just opened up so many more opportunities that,
I think Disney would have turned around on it. Yeah, for sure. Because they had the Clone Wars going on, not Disney, but they had the Clone Wars going on, and so they could have almost had like a spinoff of like within that type of animation, going back and like looking at each of the 20 type of thing that turned.
Was Lord Sidious a Jedi?
No. Darth Sidious? No.
Or Darth Sidious. Mm-mm. Because who was he? He was a general before, right?
Yeah, he was like a general, and then he turned politician.
Okay.
I don't think he was ever like a... I think that's the reason why the Jedi never knew about him. Mm. And he was able to turn on them without ever knowing that they sensed like darkness in him, type of thing, because he was never in any training.
Yeah.
My
question is with Dooku, if they found like 20 people who obviously turned, and he's already on that list, then
Oh, maybe he's 21, and
maybe
Anakin
he's
would be
21.
22.
You know, yeah, maybe Anakin's 22.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It kind of just segues into, while searching through Jedi archives, Obi-Wan would have learned of Dooku and the Lost 20.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
so it's Dooku and the Lost 20. So he's either a part of that 20 or the 21. So,
Right.
but he would have learned of him. So that's what's kind of confusing. Like,
Well, maybe he was already looking through the archives
Mhm.
after he already knew that Dooku
or maybe
was bad.
Maybe, I mean, because he doesn't really kind of come into that. What do you call it? Like epiphany or whatever. Until later, to where he actually reveals himself. But what if it would have been a cutoff scene with Yoda going through the archives, and then he would have known, and then by that time you seeing Count Dooku like in the next scene. Not Count Dooku. Did I say Count Dooku?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Count Dooku?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Because we already know he's bad.
Yeah.
They just introduce him in the second one. They just randomly is like, hey, this is a bad guy, and then Yoda's like, or you don't really. I don't think Yoda ever says he was my apprentice, but you find out that that was Yoda's apprentice, was Count Dooku, and then he turned bad. So I think because he turned bad, they knew that he was bad.
Okay.
But the fact that Obi-Wan, while he was searching through the archives, he would have found Count Dooku and be like, okay, yeah, that cool. I already know that. But then he would have found the other 19.
The last 20, yeah, or the other 19.
Yeah, that was like, oh, they actually have records of when they turned bad and whatnot. So the one that stuck out to me was actually the first one. It was number 15.
Okay.
It was young Han, and it says, while Solo, a Star Wars story, fleshed out the smuggler's history, Han Solo was originally meant to have a very different origin. In the early drafts of Episode 3, so the prequels,
Okay.
Revenge of the Sith, 2005, Han was set to appear as a child living on the Wookiee homeworld, Kashyyyk. So you kind of see a little bit of the Wookiee whatchamacallit, world, because Yoda's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Order 66 is implemented. And then Yoda's like, oh, we must flee. And then the Wookiees turn around and they take off, type of thing as well.
Mm.
So we see a little bit of that world. And apparently we were supposed to see, or it says was only ever going to be a brief cameo, with Han reportedly only speaking 1 or 2 lines of dialogue. Clearly, this would have completely changed how Han's story in Solo, which showed him meeting Chewie for the first time while in his early 20s. Mm-hmm. The cameo was cut early on, however, and no scenes were ever filmed with the young Han. But I think I bring it up only because I think, yeah, that actually would have changed the whole Solo story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if he actually grew up in that kind of forest type of world with all the Wookiees, it would have been him and Chewie as friends the whole time. You know what I mean? They would have been like best buds type of thing.
Like Calvin
which
and Hobbes.
You kind of get.
Calvin and Hobbes?
Like Calvin and Hobbes.
Calvin and Hobbes, yeah.
I think they do a little thing.
Oh, do they?
Yeah,
that's cool.
Some artist did like a little mini, like little baby Han with a little baby Chewie.
Baka and Han.
And I think that would have totally changed the story. And I mean, it's not that Solo was bad at all. You know what I mean? But maybe it would have made it better had Han been introduced that early. Mm-hmm. Then Disney couldn't have been like, because they made that canon, so they couldn't have been like, oh no, actually they meet Chewie. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they'd have to craft a story around little Han and little Baka, growing up together or escaping in the pods on, outside Kashyyyk, whatever, and then, you know what I mean, starting their story that way.
Yeah, and if you watch the original trilogy, they just have this kind of just.
They have the best friend.
Yeah, this best friend that they've known each other for, for however so many years.
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to be, they're not even supposed to be that old by the time, A New Hope came out. Or maybe they're like.
Not necessarily, because I know it's weird. The timeline is weird, but because there's a certain ending point in Solo that I don't want to spoil. It sets a timeline like almost predating the prequels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how old is Han?
Right? That's what I mean. If it's older or it happens after the third prequel, right? Because something that happens, yeah. Well, like I said, I don't want to spoil it.
I haven't seen it, so he doesn't.
But like a timeline type of thing, it would kind of fit obviously before Rogue One, before the third one, possibly the second one. You know what I mean? Where Obi-Wan has the beard already, and Han is young still. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And then give them a few years to make Han a little bit older.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know. But then again, if you think about it, in the third one, Chewbacca's already an adult because Chewbacca, remember well, actually, you don't remember in Solo. In Solo, he mentions like, "Hey, how old are you?" And Chewie responds, and then he's like, 100. What? And like he's like it's surprised kind of thing, because he like randomly knows how to speak Wookiee.
Yeah, which never explains that. Like,
I don't know.
I mean, if they would have
him.
had that origin story, I mean, it would have at least explained how he can actually.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
You know, it's like, oh, yeah. I know what they're talking. I've been with them my entire life.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So that would have been cool. Okay, so my next one.
Your next one.
Let's see what I got here. I had it right here. Hold on. Human Jabba.
Oh.
So, Human Jabba. So, one of the most infamous scenes cut from the original Star Wars was the original appearance of Jabba the Hutt. The gangster with a grudge against Han, Jabba initially appeared as a heavyset man in the original film. He appeared in the hangar bay at Mos Eisley, camping out near the Millennium Falcon to remind Han about the debt he owed. Jabba eventually debuted in The Return of the Jedi in 1983 as a giant slug monster and became one of the series' most memorable characters. The original scene was eventually restored in the special edition release of the original film, although the human Jabba was replaced with the CGI slug.
Yeah, I remember them doing that.
I know he's not the biggest character in... He's not like the big...
Okay,
but
he's so iconic that they actually made him in the prequels. He's in the very first one. He's on Tatooine. He's like, blah, 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 like before the race starts. Like he's the one like saying go pretty much. I mean that's how like big and.
Well, I mean, actually, he was a part of every single one of the original trilogies, wasn't he? Or at least the first and third one.
First and third one.
The first and third one he was a part of. But I mean, they had to have grabbed him in the second one because he was frozen, correct? They had to transfer him over. Or cryogenically frozen. What was he?
Yeah, but he wasn't there.
It was Han.
Boba Fett got him.
Yeah.
And cryogenically froze him, then took him to Jabba. And the third one is where you pick up and you see Jabba for the second time. Well, technically for the first time.
But can you
in the originals?
Can you imagine some big heavy-set dude as Jabba?
No, I don't think I can. That would just. I think it would make the whole Leia slave suit thing a lot more creepy.
Yeah, it was already weird. It's weird, don't get me wrong, but it would be completely creepy.
Yeah.
Because then you have this big old guy.
Right, because then you can kind of almost imagine, because he looks like a man, like you can kind of imagine the whole fantasy-esque kind of disgustingness that would go on. Whereas like a slug thing, he's just like, maybe he just eyes her for her beauty, and it's not going to be like a sexual predator type of thing.
I feel like he wanted to eat her half the time. Like she was like
# no sexual predators.
Right. I felt like he would like want to eventually like eat her and as like a dessert. Like that's the vibe I got. But as a big man, it now just like this guy's literally, just.
Wasn't there a scene where he pulls on there's like the blue girl that had like the weird long braid thing, and he pulls on her, and then he kind of like licks her like.
No, I thought he ate like one of the girls or something like that.
Really?
Either that or he fed her to the monster.
Oh, I think he fed her to the monster. He like pushed her in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think that would definitely change.
That's a good one. Because I would think that would just change the whole like. Almost psychology or like the emotion that you would see when you're watching the third original trilogy,
Yeah,
the third movie, because you'd be like, oh god, that's really
you don't
racy
become,
almost,
Yeah, you don't become intimidated by some. Obviously it would have been big, and they would have probably just fancied him up or whatever. But I mean, this is a giant slug who's spoken an alien tongue.
Mm-hmm.
That one is definitely the one that kind of set the tone for that. So I'm glad they went that route.
Yeah. So my second one's also from the originals. It's called C-3PO's Dark Side, which I thought was pretty interesting. It says the Wampa might be one of the scariest monsters in the original trilogy. That's like the Yeti type thing.
Yeah.
Appearing in Empire Strikes Back, 1980, the giant beast attacks Luke while he's out on patrol on Hoth. It drags him back to his lair before Luke uses his force powers to escape. The way the scene is shot, the Wampa is barely shown, making it all the more haunting. Originally, now I had to read this a couple times to kind of really get the idea of like the imagery. It says originally there was going to be an entire room full of the beasts at the rebel base. So he's not like one singular monster that lives in a cave.
Yeah, it's
They're
full
like
of them.
he's almost has like they have like a farm of them kind of like huddled together. Apparently the rebels were keeping them there after constant attacks. So it's like they just kept attacking the rebel base, and they're like, okay, we're just gonna kind of rope you into this area and keep you there. During the Imperial invasion, C-3PO would walk by the door, take off the warning sign, and lure a bunch of the stormtroopers to a painful death, which I thought was so crazy. The fact that he's just like, oh, hey, a warning sign, this shouldn't be here. You know what I mean? Because he's almost kind of like oblivious to things, but at the same time, this would be like, oh, no, warning sign. Come over here, stormtroopers, enjoy.
Yeah.
And then they would just get tore up.
That would give a different take on who C-3PO is.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you would expect it from R2-D2. Like if R2-D2 was the one, it's like I could kind of see him doing that. Just
right,
to learn.
opening a hatch maybe and letting the stormtroopers in. They're like,
Yeah.
hey, what's this door open for? And then they walk in. Whereas like I said, C-3PO is a little bit more oblivious to those situations, and he's just kind of like, oh, what is going on here? Kind of thing. And you're like, oh, C-3PO.
Yeah, right.
But if it turns around and he's just like, oh shit, C-3PO, you nasty. That's messed up, man. Those are just humans.
Yeah, I know. He's regardless of, has no regard to the human race apparently. But I don't know.
They cut it, but that would have been like
it would have been interesting.
It would have been like, oh wow.
Because I'm thinking like what they could have done later on, and then you could have seen a different dynamic to C-3PO, to where you had a little bit of a different personality.
Yeah, because that's in the second of the original trilogy. So you could have had him Return of the Jedi. There was a lot of darkness in Return of the Jedi. You could probably have seen like almost like another scene where he is just as dark, or if not darker, doing something in that one too. And
he plays this kind of really oblivious role, but then
but secretly
secretly he had, he's conning.
That's like that Jar Jar Binks theory, where they're saying that he's like actually like Dark Plagueis.
That's what I hope that they had put on here.
Because he was like so oblivious, but he always got like he never got hurt. He was always like, and they used like evidence of like the martial arts, the drunken monkey type of thing, and you kind of see him how he's kind of like just clumsy, but he's really clumsy with a purpose because it ends up taking out some of the thing. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know. Your third one.
My third one. Third to last one. My third one is
like 10 minutes.
We have 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. The original Star Wars trilogy made it clear that when a Jedi perishes, their body disappears. So it was a little strange when Qui-Gon Jinn, but I'm so bad at this. Qui-Gon Jinn's body didn't do that when he was struck down by Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace in 1999. It was later revealed that becoming Force Ghost wasn't a skill that Jedi had at the time. It was later revealed that Qui-Gon was the one who learned to become one with the Force and trained Yoda and Obi-Wan to do so. Originally, Qui-Gon, or just his voice, would have appeared in Revenge of the Sith to explain this, as opposed to Yoda suddenly revealing this information out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So
I do remember that. Just randomly, he just was kind of like, oh, let me
All
tell you this crazy exposition about Force ghosts. And you're like, the fuck, where'd that come from?
Yeah, I mean,
But that would kind of explain it. I think that would help like actually give lore or information to the lore, right? I mean, the stories were already placed the same. Like nothing would really change, but it would kind of give us an information of like, oh no, because Yoda knows how to do this, or Yoda could still say it, but we would know that background information of like him. Like, well, I taught Obi-Wan how to do this. I taught Yoda how to do. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and that just goes. That would actually only go to show that those Jedi only are the ones that turn into Force ghosts.
Yeah.
If he's the one that is the first one to figure it out, that's thousands of Jedis that just die. You know what I mean? He's the only one, plus who he taught to move on.
Exactly.
You know?
And you would have found out that he was kind of more of this prominent role to Obi-Wan and to Yoda, and he was the one who really kind of gathered that and was able to kind of just show that to Obi-Wan, Yoda, and then later Luke Skywalker, because you know how he does it with
And Anakin. I mean, you think about it, because Anakin did it too. Like they added his Force Ghost into the new digital editions.
Oh yeah, that's true.
In the third of
At the
the
end,
original
when they're all
trilogy.
dead,
At the
right?
end, yeah. But they add him in as like young Anakin, which is weird to me too. But whatever. Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, because it would have explained it a little bit more rather than like.
But Qui-Gon was his kind of a
Qui-Gon.
master as well,
Yeah.
a little bit. You know what I mean? He had 2 apprentices at the time, so maybe he did kind of explain it to him before he's like, hey, just so you know. Or maybe Obi-Wan taught it to him, Anakin, and said, this is how you're going to do this if it ever comes to this type of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, at least it gives a little bit more of an explanation to it,
Right.
rather than Luke Skywalker, sees ghosts. So.
Yeah. I know, and I always thought, like, as a kid, because I haven't actually, I've watched it, but I just never, like, stopped and looked at, like, does Leia see them too? Because she technically has the Force.
Yeah,
so I was
she
like,
does.
does she see them too? Because that'd be really interesting if, with, like, you look back at, and does Lucas tell, her, hey, okay, you're going to see these Force ghosts too, or are you just looking into the forest? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Luke's looking at them, and then she looks in the forest like, what you looking at, buddy? Like what is that?
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So yeah, my third was also the Lost 20.
Yeah.
So
I think that's pretty.
that was our that was our 3. So that was our 3 each, and there's 15 in all. So if you want to check out the link below, and you can check out all 15 and the different cutscenes that they actually possibly filmed or at least had ideas for, and they cut before they even did the filming, or they cut it at the actual editing table. Pretty interesting. Some of those things actually go into some things that would actually change Star Wars a lot. So we picked up what we thought was like the most impactful in our opinion. But let us know, read through the article and let us know in the comment section below what you think would be the most impactful change in Star Wars that would actually change the whole story, or at least a couple movies in general. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this nice short little podcast. We enjoyed the goes, the lambic from Belgium.
Goes that I can't pronounce.
But thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of the week.
Cheers.
Cheers.